Okay, I think we're pretty much good everywhere now. So,
Okay, cool. Hey everyone. Thanks for coming on. So, we're going to just talk about our feelings. How are you feeling today?
yeah, this is a great day to talk about our feelings because, to be honest, I'm feeling super tired today. I didn't really sleep that well last night, and it's funny because I knew that we had this Instagram live today, and my first instinct when I realized that we were about to go live, and I woke up today feeling super tired and like groggy was like panic because I was like, like I'm not going to be at my best, for this Instagram live. But then I remember the whole theme of today is vulnerability and just leaning into whatever you're feeling. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I think that's I don't want to say it's great. Like I'm sorry you're feeling tired.
Mhm.
But it's like it's great that you're not feeling your best because I think that's kind of why I wanted to start do this thing with your important project is let's just be honest with how we're feeling sometimes and it's okay. What happens when you're tired? Like what other areas of your life do you notice you kind of resist or you kind of just feel down on yourself. Do you want to change the fact that you're tired? Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think for me personally, everybody's different, but I think, most we probably can all relate to some piece of what I'm going to say. But I think for me personally, Um, I'm such a perfectionist and I tend to be very like hard on myself. I've gotten better over the years. Like I used to be like super, super critical to myself. And I think just as I've, you know, uh, gotten deeper into my own spiritual path and like self-love practices and like going to therapy and all that good stuff, I've definitely gotten better. But at my core, I'm still I demand a lot out of myself. So when I don't feel fully high energy or I feel tired or not at my best, um, I end up getting like really cranky, and my ability to uh, deal with adversity in the world. And when I say adversity, I mean like simple things like even just like half an hour before this talk, my internet went out and it's just so not a big deal. But I was like, God damn it. Like I was like so pissed about it. And I think like my ability to deal with that stuff goes down when I'm tired. Um, and that's where mindfulness of the fact that it's just really not a big deal and also self-awareness that okay, like why does this bother me so much? It's not necessarily because the thing is that troublesome, the situation. It's more just because I have this really high expectation of myself and I feel like I'm not going to live up to that expectation. It's like, well, why do I have a high expectation of myself? Because, of my childhood issues. And then you just go down that rabbit hole.
yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
like a full cycle. I feel that. Like I feel like we're very similar in that regard. I do so many things, so whenever I'm tired, I'm really resistant to it as well. I'm like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Let me go get 17 cups of coffee.
Right.
Um, and I just try to fix it and I try to change it. And so, do you have any practices with yourself when you know that you're feeling something that you're really resisting? What kinds of things do you do in that space when you recognize it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the most powerful journeys that I've been on over the last couple years has been uh, really getting to know my inner child and really starting to cultivate a relationship with like the 6-year-old version of me who typically when I'm in a bad mood or when I'm, angry or getting triggered by something or someone, it's usually just like there's a little boy in there who is not getting the attention that he wants or the love that he wants. And I think we all have that little kid inside of us. And I think a lot of conflicts between human beings, especially like, it happens a lot in like romantic relationships, for example, but even in like friendships and stuff, it's without being aware of it, we're making it the other person's responsibility to soothe that child. Maybe because that wasn't we didn't get something growing up or whatever, but we're adults now, and so like ultimately, it's our responsibility to take care of that child so that we can interface with the world as adults and not as children. And so to answer your question, like one thing that I do is I just ask myself a really simple question, like when I'm feeling down, or even like right now in this moment, I have like a little bit of like a small amount of social anxiety because I'm aware of the fact that people are watching this. I want to perform well or like give insightful answers or whatever. So I just become aware of that and then realize that, um, okay, like what does the child inside of me want in this moment? And I just can just ask myself that question at any moment. Like, just take a second, like, close your eyes if it helps, and just like go inward and say like, what do you need from me right now? Like, do we need a second? Do we need a break? Do we need to like step out and take a breath? What do you need? And as you do that practice more, you start to get answers. And like, sometimes the answer is like, I don't want to be at this party anymore because I'm not having fun anymore. And you dragged me here because like your friend wanted you to come, but I never wanted to come and you're like not paying attention to me. So I'm going to throw a tantrum by making you really socially awkward or anxious right now. And so like you start cultivating that relationship with your inner child. And I think it helps you operate better for the world, but almost more importantly, it's just a really beautiful self-love practice. Like you're actually being there for yourself, which is something that we don't really get taught. I don't think so.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I actually, it's so funny we're talking. This conversation went in this direction because I felt like this happened to me yesterday. I all my plans were canceled, and I kind of like got rejected in a sense yesterday as well. And I was feeling really lonely and sad, and I was like, I'm not going to reach for anything extra today. I'm just going to like sit in and like deal with this loneliness and like look at it. And then in this morning, I kind of did the same kind of work. I'm like, what do I need? What does my inner child need? And this morning, I woke up with like this like the first thing on my mind was like, not, when people don't come into your life or they leave your life or they don't want to be in your life, they're not meant to be there. You only want to open up space for everyone that needs to be there. And then I just was feeling so silly today after that. Like I think that I kind of spent some time in a little bit of like a lonely space yesterday, and it kind of gave me what I needed to feel good today. And I literally haven't felt this silly in so long. I've just been like doing little silly things all day long.
That's
So
amazing.
I love that you shared that because we have a similar perspective. So I think it's great to give yourself space to like just sometimes it sucks to feel tired or it sucks to feel sad, but if we don't resist it, sometimes it can be a teacher. Can you tell me about a time where maybe an emotion that was negative, felt like you realized that it really was a teacher for you, or it gave you some type of insight that you might have not gotten if you didn't feel that?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it happens all the time, but I think for the sake of in the spirit of vulnerability and like doing something that's sharing something that scares me a little bit because it's like so vulnerable. Uh, I think like like I'll use an example from like romantic relationships because I think that's where so much of our childhood stuff comes out, and we are all constantly getting triggered, like in romantic relationships.
Sure.
It's those deep human biological needs to be wanted and desired and belong and reproduce and all that stuff. So for me, like uh, back in like 2020, I was in a relationship and it got forced into being long distance because of COVID. Because the girl was in Europe and I was here, and we literally couldn't see each other. And I remember feeling um, I remember feeling uh so sad and like just upset that we couldn't see each other, but also like at the time, because I hadn't really dove into my attachment issues, which we can get into, like I just didn't think that anything was like really that wrong with me. I was just unaware. So for the sake of like, being a strong masculine person who like is unaffected, I was trying to play it like I wasn't as bothered as I was, because I didn't want her to feel like I was like not, stable, or like I was the one that was like freaking out about stuff. but deep down inside, I was going through a lot of turmoil because I was just like scared about the future of our relationship. Like we weren't, I was, and I really like loved this girl, and I was just like, had a feeling it wasn't going to work because it was so long distance. But I was trying to act like, I was like, just like cooler about it than I was. And, what I can see now so clearly, and what that experience taught me in a very rough way, but like it was a hard lesson, was when you feel negative emotions, like your question, it's always teaching you something. And once you can really flip that switch and look at negative emotions as like an alarm clock, like a fire alarm that's going off and saying, okay, something here is not that something's wrong, because like it's impossible to go through life like without feeling that. It's like that's like toxic positivity, which is its own thing, but just like there's something that needs addressing. There's some emotional need that isn't being met. And I know for myself, and I know I'm not alone, like because of my ideas around like what it means to be a man or whatever, like I couldn't allow myself to just be vulnerable and express that. um, Now that I've done the work, I'm aware. And what I realized in that specific situation was the reason I was getting so scared about the future of the relationship was because I really cared about the relationship and I really wanted to make it work. But I was actively pretending like I didn't care to protect myself from feeling those feelings, rather than just like admitting to myself and to her, that I really actually gave a shit, and like risking that vulnerability, like risking that rejection. And then at a deeper level, why did I care about the relationship? Well, I cared about the relationship working because the little boy inside of me, again, wants to feel loved. Like he wants to feel like he belongs. And I wasn't adequately doing that for him because I was constantly not being authentic to how I felt. So then he was reaching for it from this woman, which is not her job. Like her job is to take care of herself. And like, that's not, so there's like this very subtle, like codependent thing happening on both sides, by the way, but which is always the case. And so when I realized that, what that taught me was like, okay, the relationship is not going to work out, not just because of the distance, but just like even if we were together, it wouldn't have worked because it was just the COVID exposed all the toxicity underneath it. And also, no relationship is going to work out until I can consistently give that little boy inside, until I consistently satisfy my own mommy issues and stop making it like a woman's job. And so that was like a really powerful learning experience for me. And I actually took some time and just stopped dating, which is the first time I ever did that in my life. Like it was a wild experience, but it was also really beautiful. So yeah, I think that's an experience that probably most people can relate to, because we've all had uh, tough relationships. So
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the most I've ever learned about myself is through is through heartbreak. It's always that like, and then I realized myself also that I have some attachment issues when it comes to like why did my last heartbreak hurt so bad? It's like I have this idea that some type of attachment that I need someone else to validate. So something that I've been asking myself a lot recently was, why do I need so much validation? I think it's normal to need validation, but why does it hurt so bad when I don't have that validation from a partner?
yeah,
So I think that was, I can definitely relate, and I think a lot of people can relate to that as well. How do you
yep.
feel after sharing that?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think like it's obviously like vulnerable to share that. But I think I'm actually pretty comfortable at this point with being open about that stuff, because like my whole life philosophy is like to be vulnerable and just like my whole thing is about self-belonging and belonging to yourself. And so if I were to withhold details of that story for fear of how it would make me come across, those are like subtle self-abandonments, like even in the way that I share the story. So yeah, so I'm like very, I mean, I'm not always like this. And of course, like, it's funny because like for all the growth that I do, like every year I look back and I'm like, I was such an idiot like 6 months ago. So I'm sure I'll look back at this and be like, oh yeah, I was still playing games in this way or whatever. But, yeah, I try my best to just be, like it's, like, non-negotiable, like, to just be as vulnerable and raw as possible because,
Yeah.
that's just, like, all of my that's just, like, my personal, my thing, so, yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think that's such an important thing to do, but it's so hard sometimes. So many times, I feel like I have to make a decision. Maybe you can speak to another thing where you had to really make a decision that felt authentic to you, but you knew it would hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the toughest that's basically what happened in that relationship, um, and that's really, really difficult to do, and your mind can just find all kinds of justifications for why that's not the right idea, and they're very, like, appealing justifications, and it's so easy to gaslight yourself in those situations and be like, "Oh, I'm just being, like, overly, like, sensitive," or whatever. That's been a big learning for me. Like I used to think, especially again, like as a dude, I guess, like I don't know. I think luckily these gender roles are kind of neutralizing a lot, which is it's good. But I know for me, like growing up at least, yeah, just like being overly emotionally sensitive was just not something that I would consider to be a strength. But as I've uh, gone further in my artist journey and stuff, it's like that's like the superpower, like that's the most important thing. Um, it does make life more intense, but if you can like learn how to harness that energy, then you're just so much more powerful and you're so much more aware of what's going on for other people, which can make you so much better at like relating to people. So
Yeah. It makes life more tense. It makes like the sad moments a little more sad, but I definitely think it makes the moments, the beautiful moments more beautiful. I think when you're vulnerable. So I really think it's a strength. I almost think that when you're really honest with yourself, that pain doesn't last as long. I just like lean into it. I feel it. I'm not you don't really skirt around your pain when you're really being vulnerable and honest. And I think that is something that I've personally learned, on my journey as well.
mm.
So
Yeah, I'm curious about so you mentioned that yesterday slash like today, you kind of had a bit of a lonely stretch, and then at some point that transitioned into this what sounds like a really enjoyable time with yourself where you were leaning into your playfulness and silliness. Um, do you feel like what was the process of that transitioning? You know what I mean? Like, are there practices that you do to help make that transition, or does it just happen organically if you just allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling?
I think a little bit of both. This morning it definitely was organic. I think I can probably say that if I just allow myself to feel it and work through it, I'll journal. I will. I notice what I started doing is I start noticing when I start reaching for things like like social media or like texting someone that I know I shouldn't or something, something like that. Like I reach for things, and so when I am able to make myself sit with whatever I'm feeling and just realize that it's going to pass, I think that that's the way that I transform through it. But I give myself space. I don't know how long it's going to be, because I was like, oh, I'm going to have this like emotional, like sad thing to talk about tomorrow, and I'm actually not feeling sad at all. I'm feeling like really silly and funny. So
Right.
but I mean, I was
Yeah.
feeling really emotional, and I think it's the other beautiful thing is like, do you ever realize how much your emotions change in like a given hour or day?
Yeah, or like even within 15 seconds. Like I just want to note something that I'm experiencing. Like the experience of you right now in this moment uh is like wonderful. Like it's very pleasant because I feel like you're very embodied with your emotions, and it's almost like I'm there with you, like feeling the bubbliness, like as it rises and then subsides, like coming in waves. And I just want to call that like I feel that, and then it affects me, and I start to feel the same thing. And I think that's why being vulnerable with another human being though scary, is it's like what we deeply crave because it's like it's not that it's a way out, but it's like it's a way in. It's like somebody like leading you into the pool and just being like, "Water's just fine." Like, like it's like you wanting to get in a pool. Like I
Yeah.
feel like you're in the pool right now splashing around and
Then
I'm like like my toe is like in there and it's cold, but you're like encouraging me to get in, So
once you're in, it's not so cold anymore, right? It
right.
feels better when you're in, right? Just jump in. Uh,
Right.
um, and it also speaks. I'm glad that you can feel my energy. I can feel yours too, and I think something that I love about Your Important Project, I wrote about this recently, was that like it's almost like a manifestation of, because I give out stickers mostly, like, and sometimes when I'll notice, like if I leave them, like I work in a hospital and I'll leave them and like people will grab them and I'll see stickers all over the hospital. I'm like, I didn't give that sticker to that person. And I just feel like it's almost like a manifestation. Like your energy is so infectious to other people. So like being aware of it, it really impacts it. Like I'm like, it's pretty cool that you said that. Like I'm impacting you when you're in Connecticut, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So shall we get into a little meditation?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. Um Cool. Yeah. Well, I guess this is actually nice because this is the first time Ashley, who's on here watching, knows she's seen me do a couple of these, but in the past I've done it um just like by myself. So I'm just looking at myself, like guiding people that I can't see. So this is nice. I'm gonna like I'll do it like, for you, but whoever's watching obviously can follow along.
Also, shout out to Ashley for the connection.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out Ashley for connecting us. Um Ashley's the best.
She is. Much love to Ashley.
So yeah, we'll keep this to about 10 minutes. Keep it short. And the purpose of this meditation, for anybody out there listening who wants to follow along, as you guys can probably tell by our conversation, today's topic was about feelings and emotions and some strategies and tools for just feeling your feelings and not running away from them. And one thing before we start, I just want to allude to that you actually reminded me of when you were mentioning that your emotions just like change if you give them time. I actually watched this TED talk. I'll try to find it and post it on my story after this for people who are watching. But basically, like it's been scientifically proven that any emotion you feel in the body physiologically only lasts for 90 seconds if you don't mentally attach a story to it. So if you can get mindful and concentrated enough in your mind to just witness whatever you're experiencing, whether it's like grief, joy, excitement, whatever, like the physiological stress that happens to your body lasts for 90 seconds and then it's gone. But it's like the story that can keep us ruminating for days or weeks or whatever. So I think that's a nice little factoid to lead us into the meditation. So yeah, we can just start by fully arriving here. And for those who are listening, if you want to close your eyes, you can. Closing your eyes can be helpful. Obviously, it helps you focus. It can help you forget that you're, on camera or like on your phone or whatever. But I'm also a proponent, and I would recommend if anybody wants to challenge themselves to try to keep your eyes open because ultimately we want to be able to apply these skills that we're building um, in day-to-day life. Like usually when something happens that stresses you out, it's not when you're sitting on your meditation cushion alone. So the more that we can just be able to operate at any point with these tools, the better. So eyes open or closed, just taking a second to fully arrive here, feeling your butt on the chair that you're sitting on, um, and just feeling the weight of your body. Just remembering that you have a body, right? Like we spend so much time up in our heads. And something I like to do sometimes is just wiggle your left pinky toe, just give it some attention. When was the last time you gave your left pinky toe some attention? And just fully allowing yourself to scan up and down your body and feel the entirety of who you are beyond what's going on in between your ears. And now just taking a stock of what you're feeling in this moment. And when I say what you're feeling, I don't necessarily mean um, an emotion, which is another layer, right, that we attach onto the physiological experience that's happening in this moment. So, an example of that is, you know, when you're really excited or you're really scared, physiologically, it's almost an identical thing that's happening in your body. But it's the situation and the mental story that makes one very pleasant and one very unpleasant. So, trying our best to detach from whatever mental story we might be attributing to what's going on in our body right now and just experiencing the sense perception as directly as possible without the mental labeling. So for example, for me right now, I'm like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I didn't sleep super well last night. So I feel a little bit of heaviness in my chest. My eyelids are a little droopy. I have like a little dull ache in my head on the right side. So that's the kind of noting that I would encourage anybody listening to do is just like feel what is physically happening in your body and then stop yourself before you get to the next step of saying, "Oh, well, I have a headache because I didn't sleep, and my eyelids are droopy because I didn't sleep, and I'm so undisciplined. I don't go to bed on time." Like, just stop at that and just keep it at the physical level, whatever you're feeling right now, and pick one sensation that you've noticed over the last 15 seconds that I've been guiding you through that exercise. So it could be maybe a sensation you're feeling in your chest. It could be a sensation that you're feeling in your head or in your shoulder or your leg, whatever it might be. And just focus your attention on that sensation, almost like you're aiming a spotlight on that specific part of the body. And we're just going to sit with this sensation for a couple seconds, couple minutes, and give it our full attention. And we're just going to see what happens. Especially with unpleasant sensations, unpleasant emotions, um, which if we take off the mental story, like I've been saying, are just physiological sensations in the body. When we're in it, right? Like when we're hooked by the story, it can be so easy to feel like this is just never going to go away. And we almost like, it's almost sometimes feels like this is how it's always been. Like we suddenly forget that we ever were like not feeling anxious, right? And that's all just the work of the mind. So in this moment, just trying to really hone in on whatever sensation we're feeling and pay enough attention to it that we can start to notice all the subtle ways that it's changing from moment to moment. Because the reality is, everything in our body is constantly in motion. Our blood is flowing through our veins like rivers that never stop. Our breath is going on whether or not we're aware of it. And so it is for all of our physical sensations. So even if what you're focusing on right now is what your brain might describe as pain, like right now, for example, I have like a knot in my left shoulder blade. And if I'm only loosely paying attention, but not really focusing in on it, it just feels like an annoying knot in my shoulder blade, and it's just like, when is this going to go away? Maybe I should foam roll or whatever. But as we narrow in on that sensation, we can start to experience it more and more from the inside out rather from the outside in. And the closer we get to it, the more it reveals itself to be a constantly changing kaleidoscope of sensations that are neither good nor bad. They're simply sensations happening. And simply by paying closer and closer attention, we don't need to do anything else. We don't need to believe anything about meditation or Buddhism, or we don't need to have any philosophy in our head. Simply by just paying attention to experience at a deeper and deeper level, it is revealed to us that the perception of the physical sensations in our body is always a choice. Obviously, this is easier said than done, but this is just like a little stretch that maybe it is something you guys can take with you after this Instagram live, to just pay attention when you're feeling in a negative emotion. Notice the mind's tendency to want to go into thinking mode and turn it into a story and maybe find someone to blame for it, whether that's yourself or someone else or a situation. Notice that tendency. Gently tell your mind, thank you for your input, but we're going to try something different this time. And then allow yourself to direct your attention away from the story and further and deeper into the actual physical sensation. And you may find that what was suddenly such an unpleasant emotional experience now becomes a more neutral, objective physical experience. And in my humble experience, having done, about 30 days on silent meditation retreat, this is the most direct and effective way to actually practice mindfulness, right? Like everybody talks about mindfulness, it's very popular right now, but this is like actually what mindfulness is. It's paying attention to direct experience without the second order reality of our thoughts and stories that we put onto it. And the added benefit of this is that the more that we stay with our bodies by doing this, so whatever it is that you guys have been paying attention to over these last few minutes, the more attention we give our bodies, the more energy we will experience in our bodies. One of my teachers, one of my Tantra teachers says, energy flows where attention goes. And so the more that we actually just direct our attention towards the pain or towards the itch or something pleasurable too, towards the sensation of physical pleasure that we may be feeling in some part of the body, the more energy we experience in that, and the less we experience it as a solid, unchanging thing, and the more we experience it for what it actually is, which is a moving wave of particles, energy. So that's just like a little taste of what I would consider to be like just pure, direct, non-dogmatic mindfulness. There's a million types of meditation out there, and I think different people, different things suit different people at different points in their life, depending on what they're looking for. But this is really just a very reliable way to, throughout your day, and this is why I wanted to do it with eyes open. Throughout your day, just like if you're feeling something, go move away from the mental and go into the physical and experience it for the physical reality of what it is without using your imagination. And and then that's a really beautiful way to develop more equanimity in your life. So I hope that was somewhat useful for you guys. And yeah, I think we can wrap it up with that.
Thank you. It's very useful for me. I struggle feeling relaxed, and I felt relaxed. So, all right.
Happy to hear that.
Thank you so much for connecting with me and talking and sharing your feelings and being vulnerable. I am so happy we did this, and I'm so happy everyone tuned in.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so great, and yeah, we should definitely do this more. Really enjoyed talking to you. Love your vibe and energy as well. So yeah, to more for more to come.
More to come. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
It's a good start to your week.
Peace.
Bye.